Well, meanwhile, new figures released today by the EU's border agency suggest that the number of people who have crossed illegally into the European Union so far this year has risen by 13%. It's 13% higher than the same period in 2022. The agency says the increase was entirely driven by the number of people who arrived after travelling across the Mediterranean, which more than doubled. Let's speak now to our reporter in Rome, Sofia Batizza. And Sofia, a rise in those crossing illegally. Why do we think that is?
Well, Frankie, it's mostly people who are coming from Egypt, from Guinea, from the Ivory Coast, who are fleeing war and are fleeing persecution and are trying to reach Europe looking for a better life. Now, what we are seeing is a new dangerous trend of using very small, low-quality metal boats. They tend to break during the journey, crossing the Mediterranean Sea from North Africa to Italy. And it's very easy for those boats to capsize. And that's exactly what happened a few days ago when a boat that was carrying 45 people on board capsized near Sicily because of a wave. And as a result, 41 people died. And that's why, according to the UN, this route, the central Mediterranean route, is by far the most dangerous migrant crossing in the world. Just to give you a number, Frankie, this year so far, more than 2,000 people disappeared in the Mediterranean Sea, trying to reach Europe. Now, what Frontex predicts is that those deaths won't stop people who want to try and come to Europe. And that's because, according to Frontex, there is fierce competition between crime groups in Tunisia and in Libya. And because of that, people smugglers are offering much lower prices for people who want to make the journey to Europe. So the fear is that more people could die in the coming months trying to reach the EU, reach Europe, searching for a better life.
And Sophia, I was just speaking to Simon, who's on the coast of Dover, watching boats arriving right here in the UK this morning, one boat carrying 60 people. And I want to ask you the same question I asked him. Now, when we see places like the UK and the government putting in schemes like the Rwanda scheme or housing people on barges, is there any sign that any EU deterrents are working to try and stop and curb these numbers? Because we're just seeing numbers rising.
That's a really good question, and it's a complicated answer. What the EU has done, they've signed a deal with Tunisia last month. Of course, Tunisia has become the main departure point for people who try and reach Europe. Now, that deal pledges more than 100 million euros that will be used to crack down on people smugglers, to strengthen EU borders, and to work on policies to send migrants home. But, let's take Italy, for example. This year, so far, more than nearly 94,000 people have reached Italy by sea. And that is more than double compared to last year. And of course, the Italian government is a right-wing government that campaigned on a promise to crack down on illegal migration. But we are seeing that, those promises have not been fulfilled. So despite the risks and despite this new deal that was signed between the EU and Tunisia last month, more people keep coming every day and are reaching Europe, mostly in Sicily. So, it's a very complicated issue to solve.
Sofia Batizza, thank you for that update in Rome as we look at the wider migration issue across Europe.